Berachos Daf Mem Zayin. We all know that you're supposed to honor and give kavod to Talmid Chacham. The Gemara says there are a few exceptions to the rule. When you're on the highway traveling, you don't have to let the Talmid Chacham go in front of you, nor do you have to let him go in front of you when you get to a bridge. Or if you're in line for my Machrayim, you don't have to let the Talmid Chacham go in front of you. The Gemara tells us a story. Ravin's donkey was overtaking Abai's donkey on the way, and Abai is thinking to himself, look at this. He comes from Eretz Yisrael. He's driving like an Israeli. What kind of chutzpah doesn't give me kavod? Yet when they got to the shul, Ravin tells Abai here, Mar, go in front of me. Abai tells him, now all of a sudden you're giving me kavod. Says Ravin, I hold like Rabbi Yochanan. You only give honor when you get to a doorway that typically has a mezuzah. Yes, if a smersh doesn't, but typically it would have a mezuzah. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav that when people are sitting around and eating, you don't eat until the person that cuts the bread eats. Rav Safar screamed out, that's not what he said. He said until the person that cuts the bread tastes. Now, tasting and eating are the same thing. The Gemara teaches us that when you repeat something in the name of your Rebbe, you should say it exactly with the same words that your Rebbe used. The Gemara teaches us proper dinner etiquette. If two people are sitting around the table and eating and one of them gets up to get a drink, the second person should wait patiently until the first person gets back from his drink. But if you have three people and one gets up to get a drink, the two don't have to wait for the one. The person that cuts the bread, he should start the meal, he should dip into the dips first, unless he wants to honor somebody that's greater than him. Halacha l'maisa, when you cut your chal on Shabbos, do not start cutting until everybody says Amen. Now you don't have to wait for somebody who's saying an exceptionally long Amen, because it's not proper to say an exceptionally long Amen. The Gemara teaches us there's Amen Yisayma, Amen Chatufa, and Amen Ketufa. Amen Yisayma is where somebody says Amen without even hearing the bracha, the source. He says Amen because people around him are saying Amen. Chatufa is that you don't say a comments under the aleph, you say a shva under the aleph. So you don't say amen, you say imein. Ketufa is you don't pronounce the nun at the end of the word, you say amei instead of amein. All these three things can cause a person to lose life. Yet if a person prolongs his amen, says it properly, that will actually give him additional days. Arichas yamim. A person should not say a bracha as if it's a burden he's trying to get over with. He should say the words nicely and slowly. Rav holds that if two people are eating and they're basically done eating, and the third person comes along and joins them, he cannot join for zimun. Shmuel holds that as long as if dessert would come out, you'd continue eating, that means your meal is still going on, and that third person is mitzvah for zimun. Rav Acha says, who's mizamen? The ikir shebasuda, the main person of the meal, meaning the person who's there from the beginning. La'alacha we paskin that it's the most important person, the most prominent person, even though he came in the middle of the meal, as long as he ate some bread. The Gemara tells us that the list that we had in the Mishnah of different foods that people were eating, that some of them you are mitzvah to zimun, some of them you're not mitzvah to zimun, you can't take the list at face value. For instance, the Mishnah says, now if a person eats demai, he could be part of the zimun. Now demai is asur to eat, how could he be part of the zimun? The Gemara tells us, because demai is a mutter for a ani and a soldier, a Jewish soldier to eat. And every person, even a wealthy person, can be considered a poor person at any given moment, as long as he is mafkir all his belongings, and he'll become poor instantaneously. Therefore, it's not the end of the world if a person eats demai, he can be mitzvah. Now it says that if you give meiser to a Levi, you give him 10% of all your fruit, and the Levi took 10% of his 10% and gave it to the Kohen, that fruit, and he ate from that, he could be mitzvah. What's the big chiddush? The answer is because the Yisrael never took the step one. He went out of order, he gave the Levi before he took Truma G'dayla, the 2%. And the chiddush is that the Levi is not responsible for that Yisrael's 2%. All the Levi has to give is 10% of what he received. What about Meiser Sheni? What's the big chiddush that if somebody eats Meiser Sheni that was redeemed properly, that he could be mitzvah? The answer is because it wasn't redeemed properly. There's another step. You have to redeem it for face value, plus add an additional 25% or 20%, depends, milagav and lobar. And he didn't do so. And the chiddush is that even though he didn't take the chaymesh, he could still be mitzvah. What's the big chiddush that a waiter could be mitzvah if he ate a full kazayis? The answer is because the waiter typically doesn't sit down as kaveh suda. He's walking back and forth, and he's standing. Nevertheless, he could be part of the meal. Now, why could we be mitzvah a kusi? Why is he any better than Amaretz, which the Gemara says Amaretz is not part of zimun? The answer is because we're talking about a kusi that's a Talmid Chacham, or we're talking about an Amaretz that doesn't take Trumas and Meisers. That's why he's not mitzvah. But a kusi, since Trumas and Maasros are in the Torah, kusim are makbid on all their rises. Not only that, they are more makbid on their rises than Yisraelim. So therefore, I can be mitzaref them. What's the definition of Am Haaretz? The Gemara brings a whole bunch of shitas. One of them is that a person who doesn't say Kriya Shema in the morning and the evening, or a person that doesn't wear tefillin, a person that doesn't wear tzitzis, a person that doesn't put up a mezuzah, a person who has children and doesn't teach them Torah. Finally, the Gemara says the halacha is even a person who's very learned, if he doesn't serve Talmid Chachamim, he's considered an Am Haaretz. So he says, but in our days we are mitzaref these Am Haaretzim because otherwise they'll go off and make their own religion. The Gemara tells us an amazing story. Rama Bar Chama did not allow Rabbi Nasher Bar Tachlifa to be part of his zimun. Because he held that Rabbi Nasher Bar Tachlifa didn't serve Talmid Chachamim, even though he himself was a Talmid Chacham. Rava says that's why Rami Bar Chama died, because he wasn't mitzaref Rabbi Nasher Bar Tachlifa. The question is, but why? If he didn't serve Talmid Chachamim, he shouldn't be part of the zimun. The answer is because Rabbi Nasher Bar Tachlifa did serve Talmid Chachamim. Rami Bar Chama just didn't know that. The other pshat is that he didn't serve Talmid Chachamim, but he was a Talmid Chacham. He listened to Torah and he repeated it and he chazred it, and that was enough for Rabbi Nasher Bar Tachlifa. The Mishnah tells us that if you eat tevel, you cannot be mitzaref. What's the big chiddush in that? It's also to eat tevel. The answer is because we're talking about tevel d'Rabbanan. We're talking about food that grew in a planter that didn't have holes facing the ground and it didn't nourish from the ground, and it's mutter to eat midaraisa, but only awesome d'Rabbanan. If you don't take Meiser Sheni, of course you can't be mitzaref to zimun. The answer is you did take Meiser Sheni, but you took it with the wrong coins. You took with flat coins that don't have any depiction on them. Of course, a guy cannot be mitzaref, and the answer is we're talking about a guy that went through half the process of gerus. He has a milah but didn't do tvila, and the chiddush is he's still considered a complete guy. Even though you cannot be mitzaref a cotton to zimun, yet here's a tremendous chiddush. If you have 9 people, you could use a cotton as the 10th, even if he's an extremely small child, an infant, a day old in his crib. Rishon ben Levi says they could be mitzaref as a 10th a slave. The question is, if that's the case, why did Rabbi Eliezer feel the need to free a slave in order to create a mini? He had 9 people, and in order to get a 10th, he freed a slave. Why can't he just be mitzaref a slave? The answer is because he already used one of his slaves as the 9th, and he used the second slave. He had to free the second slave. You can't use 2 slaves. And how could you do that even though it's an aver? The answer is because it's a mitzvah for the community, and therefore you're allowed to free your slave. If a person gets up early and comes to shul, he's one of the 10 first people in shul, he gets sechar, the same amount of schar as everybody else gets. Very interesting halacha. If 9 people look like they are 10, they are considered a minyan. There's machlokes whether they're together or they're spread out. And finally, to the Milei Chachamim that are learning together, the halachas that they're learning act as a third, and they create a zimun. Have a wonderful day.